Good morning, students. I hope you're having a wonderful week. I said good morning because it is morning here for me. It may be afternoon or evening by the time you get to this video, but I hope you're having a good week. I hope you're enjoying the nice, cool weather. It was freezing. Literally, it was 32 degrees when I got up this morning. I am enjoying the weather as I am sitting here in front of my fireplace with my cup of hot tea and looking forward to our discussion over chapter 13. So let's dig into chapter 13. Before we get into it, let me say this. I split this chapter into 3 parts. The chapter was quite lengthy, and I've been having difficulties with YouTube. Monday, I recorded a video for Child Growth and Learning, and I recorded it, finished it by 10 o'clock that morning, and had it ready to upload and started uploading it about 10 o'clock, and it was 8:30 that evening before it completely uploaded and published. That was ridiculous. It took way too long. So I got a bright idea that perhaps and I struggled with this one yesterday. I was trying to make your video yesterday to get it posted. I had the same situation. So I got the bright idea that I would get up early this morning and start recording it and split it into 3 different sections. So that's what I've done. So hopefully the videos will be a bit shorter and they will upload faster. Okay, so let's get into chapter 13. This has to do with sensory disabilities, specifically regarding hearing loss and vision loss. And as I said, this is part 1 of chapter 13. The learning objectives that we're going to cover in chapter 13, and I'm only going to mention these in part 1, but they will be posted along the way as we go, as we move through the different objective sections. We're going to look at the description of the lives of people with sensory disabilities and how their lives have changed dramatically since the advent of IDEA being passed. IDEA has to do with ensuring certain rights to people who have disabilities. We're also going to look at the explanation of the various definitions and classifications of sensory disabilities. We're going to look at the description of the characteristics and the prevalence of children and youth who suffer with sensory disabilities. We're going to look at the list of causes and risk factors associated with the sensory disabilities, the description of the assessment procedures that are used to identify sensory disabilities in children and youth, and then we're going to look at the description of the different interventions for children and youth with sensory disabilities from early childhood through adulthood. Before we get into the chapter concepts, I want to take a moment and refer you to the beginning of the chapter, the 2-page story of Tamika Catchings. She is a WNBA ball player. She has a very sad story because she struggled and suffered with sensory loss. And her story unfolds on those 2 pages, and I want you to please read that story. I want to read you just a small snippet of something that she said about her struggles and her difficulties with her disability. She says, "I was born with a hearing deficiency, and I grew up with hearing aids, glasses, braces, the whole 9 yards. I remember going to school when I was younger, and I was made fun of every day, whether it was about the way I looked because I wore big, clunky hearing aids or the way I talked. I just wanted to be normal. I just wanted to fit in. I didn't want people to notice me. I wasn't comfortable talking because people made fun of me. I just wanted to be invisible." Okay. She has overcome her disabilities. She had people guiding her, people providing for her, making sure that she was well equipped, and she turned out okay. She made many accomplishments. Look at her now. She's a big NBA or WNBA basketball player. She's muscled up. You would not want to make fun of her today, but as a child, I want you to think about this. She was a child sitting in a classroom, hearing people whispering behind her back, probably even hearing people saying things out loud that she could actually hear, seeing people pointing at her, making comments about her, and laughing. Think about what that does emotionally to a child in a school setting. It's just crushing, just crushing. Thank goodness she has overcome these and she's made great accomplishments. There are children that are going to be sitting in your classroom that are going to have some kind of disability, and they're going to be struggling on the inside. They may act out to compensate for their emotional struggles, and they may withdraw, as she was apparently doing. She was withdrawing. She was just trying to fade into the background and not be noticed. Think about what your children in your classroom are feeling and experiencing, and think about the cruelty that other students can implement on students such as this, and try to be that advocate for those students. Okay, let's dig into the chapter now. This is the section revealing a changing era in the lives of people with sensory disabilities, and this all came about as a result of IDEA. The frustration of hearing loss is not just felt by the person who has the hearing loss, but it's also felt by their family members or their close friends, because they feel like, well, I just said something to her, or I just called his name and there was no response. They're ignoring me. And sometimes people will say, well, you've just got selective hearing. You're choosing what you want to hear and what you don't want to hear. That's not true. That's so not true. I know that my mother suffered from scarlet fever, and that's one of the conditions, one of the diseases that can cause hearing loss. My mother suffered from scarlet fever when she was 8 years old. She was just a child. Most of the people in that era that developed scarlet fever died, but mother was one that she was always very strong. She overcame the scarlet fever and she got well, but the scarlet fever damaged her ears, her hearing sensations, and she had hearing loss. So my mother went to school. She was one of those children that had a difficulty. Now, back in Mother's Day, IDEA was not there. So there was not that IDEA Act in place that says we will provide for you all of the necessary tools that are required so that you can have free and appropriate public education in the in the most inclusive setting possible. She did not receive those benefits because it was not in place. According to IDEA, any child in a school setting who has any kind of disability, their needs have to be met, and they have to have certain accommodations in place to make sure that they receive the best learning experiences possible. My mother was not one of those cases back in the day, so she struggled, and she tried to not let people know. It was embarrassing to her. She still, to this day, gets embarrassed. Now she has hearing aids, thank goodness, and she has very super sensitive, high quality, high tech hearing aids now that she can hear a pin drop across the room. But when she was in school, she was one of those children that had a disability, and she had to learn, and she taught herself how to overcome those disabilities. And she went on to accomplish, she was an accountant for many years when I was very young, and then she went back to school and she became a teacher, and she obtained several degrees in the field of teaching, all the way up to, she was gifted and talented, and she was a regular classroom, and she worked with special needs children. She's kind of covered the gamut of teaching, basically. But and it's kind of like Tamika Catchings. She had to learn to overcome her disability and go on and accomplish. And you, as the classroom teacher, are going to be that tool, that resource, that guide to help these students overcome their disabilities and accomplish great things. And you're going to guide them in setting goals and how and giving them the tools and resources to accomplish those goals that they've set. This is a picture of the structure of an ear with all of the inner ear parts and so forth. I'm not going to cover this at this time, but it is in your textbook. Please look at that picture, and it will show you where all of the parts of the ear are located. These are some of the definitions and the classifications of sensory disabilities. We have the deafness, which is the complete hearing loss that is greater than 90 decibels. The hertz is the unit that measures the the frequency of hearing loss that a person has. A person can be completely deaf, or a person can just simply be hard of hearing, which means they have lost, they have a hearing deficiency. They have somewhat lost their hearing function. Audition is the act or sense of hearing. And the age of onset that hearing loss or deafness occurs, prelingual loss is prior to the age of 2 or prior to the time of speech development. So if the hearing loss occurs before they have begun to develop their speech, they're going to struggle with their speech. It's going to be harder for them to learn how to speak. Thank goodness my mother, well, not thank goodness she had a hearing loss, but thank goodness her hearing loss occurred after she had her speech development. Post-lingual loss is that pertains to the hearing impairments occurring at any age after speech development, and that's what my mother had. She was in the post-lingual loss when she lost partial hearing. The anatomical site of the hearing loss involves these 3 areas. The conductive hearing loss, this is the hearing loss that results from poor conduction of sound along the passages to the sense organ. The sensory neural hearing loss is the hearing loss that results from abnormal sense organ, which is the inner ear, and a damaged auditory nerve. And then we have mixed hearing loss, and this is the hearing loss that results from the combination of the conductive and the sensory neural problems. This is the classification of hearing loss. Hearing loss in decibels. Decibels is the measurement of hearing loss levels. And if it is 0 to 13, you're considered to have normal hearing and you have no difficulties understanding speech. 16 to 25 is a slight hearing loss. 26 to 40 is mild hearing loss. 41 to 55 is considered moderate hearing loss. 56 to 70 is moderate to severe. And then 71 to 90 is completely severe hearing loss. Anything above 91, from 91 or above, is considered to be profound hearing loss. And this is near or total loss of hearing at this point. Now let's move on to vision loss. In vision loss, we look at the different parts of the vision, the eye. We have the visual cortex, we have the optic nerve, we have the cornea, the pupil. The pupil is the part of the eye that they dilate when they are testing your vision. The iris, this is the colored portion of your eye. We have the lenses, which is the clear structure that covers the eye, and it blends the light rays so that they strike the retina directly. And then we have the retina, which is the light sensitive cell in the interior of the eye. I'm not going to go over this, but you can take some time. You can pause this, or you can look in your textbook. This is, excuse me, figure 13.2. This is a diagram of the parts of the human eye, and you can break that down and look at all of the different intricate parts of the eye. Blindness. Let's talk about blindness for a bit. The test that is done to test the visual acuity is known as the Snellen test. And visual acuity basically is the sharpness or the clearness of vision. So how sharp and how clear is your vision? When that is needed to be tested, they use the Snellen test. Now, a person can test into the category of being completely blind, and this is their visual acuity does not exceed 2200 in the better eye with the correcting lenses. So that is, you've got your correcting lenses on, your glasses, and your very better eye does not exceed 2200. Now, legally blind, you've heard of people who are considered to be legally blind. This is the visual acuity is 2200 or worse in the best eye with the best correction as measured according to the Snellen test. Their vision field is about 20% or less. So they can see somewhat. I've known people who are considered legally blind, and the lenses on their glasses are so thick. It's unreal. And even with their lenses, they can still only see about 20% or less. Persons with tunnel vision, if you have tunnel vision, you have a restricted field of vision that is only about 20 degrees at its widest angle, 20 degrees or less at its widest angle. Now, we make jokes about people and we say they can never think outside the box. They have a tunnel vision when it comes to this. That is a catchphrase saying, but tunnel vision is a real condition in the eyesight. In that literally they cannot see, and if you put your hands up like this and you can only see what you can see right in front of you. That is considered tunnel vision. Try that at home on your own, and you will understand what I'm talking about. And then we have the person who is partially sighted, and their visual acuity is greater than 2200, but it's not greater than 2070 in the better eye, even after the eye correction, whether they're wearing their eye correction glasses or lenses, or they've had a surgery. Okay, refractive problems. the visual disorders that occur when the refractive structures of the eye fail to properly focus light rays on the retina. That is considered a refractive problem. I think I skipped a slide. Okay, so myopia is the condition of nearsightedness, and this is where the refractive problem wherein the eyeball is excessively long and the focusing light is in front of the retina. And hyperopia is considered to be farsightedness, and this is the refractive problem in which the eyeball is excessively short and the focusing light is behind the retina. These are some other eye conditions. Astigmatism, that's what I have. I have astigmatism. And what that means is that the refractive problem occurs when the cornea surface is uneven or structurally defective, preventing light rays from converging at one point. Now, with my astigmatism, I can see something if I glance at it quickly. And if I move in and I glance at it quickly, without my glasses, all of the letters merge together, and even if I focus in, I can usually figure it out. But if I stare at it too long, it begins to kind of wave together and just kind of mesh together. But my glasses are awesome. I can see really well and read really well with my glasses. The reason I got glasses, I'll go ahead and tell you this short little funny story. I was teaching, and I was in high school. I was a high school teacher teaching English, and it was the workshop sessions right before classes began. We spent a couple of days in our small groups. English department is what I was in. We spent 2 days going over the English data from all the test scores of the previous year. So what we're doing is, we're looking at the data results and we're deciding, okay, based on the data, these are the problems that the students were having. These are the breakdowns, the disconnects, and we've got to come up with some plans and strategies to overcome these. Well, I was the district department chair for English, which means I had to meet with all of the elementary from K6, and we had 2 elementary campuses, and I had to meet with our junior high English teachers and our senior high English teachers, and I had to go over data with all of them, and I had a big role and a big responsibility there doing that. And I remember I was scrutinizing that data in that workshop. And the previous year, as an English teacher, we read a lot. We read a lot of essays and a lot of textbooks and a lot of novels and so on and so forth. So I had done a lot of reading over the years and never had glasses. And I was sitting in that our data workshop and trying to lead it and trying to be intelligent, but I couldn't read. And I thought, this is ridiculous. So we called for a 15-minute potty break, and I ran to my classroom, grabbed my cell phone, and I called the eye doctor, and I said, can you get me in ASAP today? And he did, and so I went and got glasses, got my eyes tested and got glasses because I couldn't read those tiny little lines with all of that data going across, and there was a lot of data to have to read regarding those test scores. So with my astigmatism, I broke down and I got my glasses. And I still wear them. Now, I don't need them. If I'm talking to people and I'm looking at people, I'm better to not have my glasses on. But if I am trying to read, I have to have my glasses to discern the words. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with having to wear glasses. I wear glasses. My husband wears glasses. Both of my daughters wear glasses. So there's nothing wrong with wearing glasses. So astigmatism, and then cataracts. Cataracts is another condition in the eyes that typically happens to older people. Now, when I say typically, I'm speaking generally. Yes, there are circumstances and situations in which it does happen to younger people, but typically this happens over a period of time where a cloud begins to form over the eye. It's like an opaque type covering, and it results in visual problems if not taken care of early on. So you hear of a lot of older people having to go in for cataract surgery to remove those cataracts. And I had an uncle that recently had a cataract surgery, and he said, "Oh my goodness, it's amazing how well I can see now." He said, "I can see. I'm so excited," because he had his cataracts removed. Um, but cataracts, it forms over time. Um, Nystagmus is the uncontrolled rapid eye movements. It's where you can't control the eye and they're batting back and forth or up and down. Um, that is a condition, and it's the uncontrollable condition. The strabismus is when the eyes are crossed internally, or the eyes look outward externally. So they're crossed internally, but they look externally outward. So they can't look directly at you, they look out like this. If you've ever talked to someone who has that condition, you feel, I know I have on a few occasions, and I know that I would be thinking, okay, are they looking at me? Or are they looking over there? You know, who are they looking at? Are they focused on what I'm saying? Or are they tuning me out because they're looking over there? No, they're not intending to look over there and tune you out. They're not doing that on purpose. They have a strabismus in which their eyes look outward. Amblyopia is the loss of vision due to the imbalance of eye muscles. Esotropia is a form of strabismus that causes the eyes to be pulled inward toward the nose. I know people, I can't do this. I know people that can make their eyes do that on purpose. They don't have a condition or anything, but they can make both of their eyes look inward at their nose. I can't do that. But the person that has this condition, their eyes do it automatically. They have a condition and they cannot help it. It happens. Retinopathy is also known as ROP, is the term that is now used in place of retinal fibroplasia. So, retinal pigmentosa is the hereditary condition that is resulting from a break in the choroid. The optic atrophy is I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading my screen. It's part of my problem. Is the degenerative disease that's caused by deteriorating nerve fibers that are connecting the retina to the brain. And then retinal detachment is the condition that occurs when the retina is separated from the choroid and the sclera. Okay, I'm sorry I botched that, but I really was having difficulty zooming in and reading that. This concludes part 1 of our chapter 13. I'm going to stop the camera now and get this ready to upload while I work on part 2 of chapter 13. I hope you found this somewhat interesting, at least informative. So I will see you in part 2 in just a few minutes.